Okay, this is the second lecture for Chapter 7, and beginning where we left off last time, this is going to be on ionizing energy. Say that 3 times fast. And this is the amount of energy that is required to remove an electron from the ground state of a gaseous atom or ion. So they always go in the gaseous state because they could be in various states, so they just make it constant as far as being gaseous. The first ionizing energy is to take the first electron, and the second is to remove the second electron. So the number of protons is always staying the same, so that's going to affect how the energy goes for each subsequent electron that you're taking away from the atom. So let's move on over here, and then we can take a look at some of the energies we're actually involved in. So notice this is kind of going across the periodic table. They got them listed down, so it's a little bit confusing. So you have sodium, and then right after it you have magnesium with 2 electrons, and aluminum has 3, and so on down the line. So sodium has 1 valence electron on the outside. And after we remove that electron, now you have a full octet of 8 below it. So notice how that second ionizing energy is much higher than it was for the first, 10 times more approximately, because you're going down into a lower valence shell, and these are much more tightly held by those 11 protons. We'll look at magnesium. It has 2 valence shell electrons. Alright, so 700 for the first, 1400 for the second, but similar situation for that third, dipping down into that lower valence shell, it takes a really big jump. So these little trends is something you have to be aware of, and why, and it's because you're going into a lower valence shell. And you can look at this all the way across, how they all make that jump or that change when you dip into that inner shell. So looking at our table here, we mentioned before, as you're moving across, why does it go up? Well, because you have increasing effective nuclear charge, because the positive is going up in comparison to what we had over here, smaller positive charge. And then of course going down you have again the larger shells versus the smaller shells over here. But you do have a couple mix-ups in here which are a little bit weird, I guess we'll mention. Is, okay, we have beryllium here, which is approximately 900, and then you have boron over here, which is a little bit less. So it's like, what's going on there? Why is boron less? Isn't it supposed to go up each time? Well, what do we know about these electrons on this side as compared to these sides? Well, they're in the p sublevel. So those are a little further out. They're a higher energy, the electrons are. So it's a little easier to remove the p's in comparison to the s's in the same shell, the same energy level. And there's some more patterns going on here which we'll mention here in just a moment. So some of this we've already mentioned, so I just want to kind of keep going across. So we just mentioned this one here. I'm going to skip over that one. And then, I don't want to go to that one. I guess we will. The other one which I wanted to mention is going on right here between nitrogen and oxygen. Notice that it's going up, and it's supposed to, again, larger positive force, looks like an X, in comparison to the positive force over here. But with nitrogen, remember the orbitals over here, that we have 3 orbitals, each one able to take an electron. So I can put 1 here, 1 here, 1 here for nitrogen. And when I'm in oxygen, I have an extra electron in there. So taking that electron away, that last one I just added, is a little bit easier in comparison to the nitrogen one because of this repulsion that you have in this orbital. You have 2 electrons in there, so it's easier, slightly easier, to take that electron away from oxygen, first electron, as it is compared to nitrogen. So it's called a discontinuity for that. So here we go, discontinuity. So the last thing we'll mention on this one is one of the discontinuities with how the electrons are removed. And we'll point out here with gallium and over to calcium. So if, for example, we don't really use gallium that much, but if we're going to lose electrons, gallium has a value, an ionization value of about 580, and the next electron to be removed would be the one with the next lowest amount of energy. So we would tear all the way through this D level, and then you look, the next closest electron to lose would be calcium in the S sublevel. So we actually skip over this entire, and I'm scribbling all over this, this entire D block to get over to the S's, and that is the electron which is taken next. So it kind of helps us to realize why these D sub-electrons or sub-level electrons aren't the ones removed. So we have what we're called, again, these valence shell electrons, which are going to be in the P block and the S block. Okay, moving along. Electron affinity, another way we can make sure that we understand how this one goes. Electron affinity is the energy change, so it could be positive or negative, accompanying the addition. So electron affinity, we're talking about adding electrons, and ionization energy, we're talking about losing electrons. One thing to point out, which I forgot to mention earlier with ionization energy, and this is important, is removing an electron from an atom. I'm going back here. Removing an electron from an atom is always an process that requires energy. So you have to invest energy to remove an electron from an atom. We have this misunderstanding, we all do, that, oh, sodium, well, that's something that very easily just loses an electron. It's very advantageous for it to do it. Yes, but it's a lot more complicated than that. But the actual process of removing that electron from an atom requires energy. All right, now affinity is a change. It can be positive or negative. So just as an example, there's an energy change when an electron is added to chlorine. And here's a little chart that shows that. So notice for the most part, most of these, energy is released from it. So an electron is added, it is more advantageous for the atom, and energy is released from the system. So we have a couple unusual ones here. If we take a look, beryllium and magnesium, they're both positive. Nitrogen is positive. But as far as a trend, let's take a look at how the trend goes. As we're moving from left to right, forget about a couple of those weird ones. We notice the value becomes, actually we'll have this as a stopping point. We notice the value becomes more exothermic, so it becomes more advantageous. And this leads us into some of the reasons for why we have metals and nonmetals, or some of the properties of metals and nonmetals. So we see that, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, they all very readily accept electrons, but then also this one doesn't make sense. Things like lithium and potassium and sodium, it's advantageous for them to accept electrons as well. It's exothermic, so theoretically it's a good thing if they gain electrons, but we know that's typically not the case. So again, there's a little bit more going into it, which we'll come into later. But beryllium, why is it not advantageous for beryllium to accept an electron? Well, because beryllium is in an S sublevel, and it already has 2 electrons there. So for it to take another electron, it has to place it up into the P sublevel. So that is definitely not something that's advantageous. It requires an energy input. Look at the difference between carbon and nitrogen. Well, nitrogen, again, let's go back to this drawing here. Nitrogen has its 3 orbitals, and each one's got a little electron hanging out in there. And for me to add an electron to nitrogen, I have to place it into an already filled orbital, and that's going to require more energy. It's going to be an endothermic process. And once you go past that, it's not quite, it's an exothermic process at that point forward. It's moving towards a full octet. But you have a couple in here you have to be mindful of why nitrogen is a positive process, why is beryllium a positive or an endothermic process, And why are the noble gases all requiring energy? And it's because, again, these guys over here have a full octet. It has to go into the upper next level, next energy level to put that electron. Okay, this is a good place to take a break, and we'll stop it right here.